Jenny. I'm a designer at Google. I work on the self-driving car project. Before this project at Google, I worked on YouTube for TV, designing TV-specific experiences. And I also worked on Google's core business, search. So before that, I had my fair share of agency work, mostly in New York City. And I've started a couple small businesses as well. So what I want to talk about today is what it feels like to be a creative person working on a project that has no concrete definition and has very little structure. More specifically, I want to talk about the emotional ups and downs that creative-minded people go through when they're working on something brand new, and how you can use those emotions to be your North Star. So to start out, I want you to think back and recollect the first moment that you had a truly creative moment and recognized it. For some of you, it may have been a simple drawing. And I think there's some rock stars in this room, probably had been artistic since birth, so this shouldn't be too hard for you. So this is mine. I drew this when I was 3, and it hangs in the kitchen of my house where I grew up. My mom looks at it every single day when she makes her cup of coffee. What I love about this is how somehow captured life according to my 3-year-old eyes. You have my parents. My mom's on the right. She's kind of leaning back. My dad's in the middle. Then we have our old sofa. We had this thing forever, and I used to play with my toys on it. And then on the left, in a very abstracted way, is a huge pile of books. And we had piles and piles of books in our house. What I like about this is that somehow this simple drawing, it accurately represented everything that I had at that time. So for other people, their first creative experience may have been building a fort. My mom is a self-employed writer, so we used to get these really insanely thick boxes full of her books, and they were the ultimate building material for kids. So we would create these very elaborate mazes and forts, and sometimes, especially in our own bedrooms, we would layer them, kind of creating a 3-4-story maze, and they were kind of like a human ant farm. So what we loved about building these forts is that we made something out of nothing. Somehow you can take something as plain as cardboard and make it interesting and important. In this picture, this is an architecture firm that I found. They're called Nothing. And their entire premise is based off the idea that you can take something very simple, a plot of land, something that has nothing there, and make something absolutely beautiful out of it. Their office, the interior of their office is built entirely out of cardboard, and it's pretty elaborate. So despite all this creativity that we have at an early age, something happens. Kids are fearless and will show their art, but as we get older, we're less secure with our confidence and our own creativity. The door starts to close, and many designers keep their work locked away until they think it's perfect, or until they have a deadline and they're forced to show it to their team. We start to fear judgment. We fear judgment from our peers, and we fear that we're going to be embarrassed. How many times have you looked over a designer's shoulder to see their work in progress, and their actual posture starts to change? They start to recoil, and their voice sounds apprehensive, and they give you this like doe-eyed look that they just fear that you're going to say it's going to suck. That is their worst nightmare. So why is this? Part of our DNA, the fact that we are designers, we have built into our DNA the essence of taste. Being a great designer is to have good taste and to know what good taste looks like. This means we love beauty and invention and things that surprise us. We fall in love with great design, but we also want to produce that great design and have it affect on other people. But as we face this big blank page, whether that's your sketchbook or Photoshop or whatever tool you use, and start to design away, our craft doesn't always meet our taste. And it's especially in the beginning of a designer's career, this is very true. So sometimes our fear of judgment is actually knowing for a fact that the design we've created is not nearly as good as we want it to be, and we're about to be called out on it. So let's layer on top of that those moments when you work on a project that's truly innovative. I've been working on the self-driving car, which is pretty innovative. So I've been living and breathing this uncharted territory for quite a while. Now you're this designer that wants to create, and you're swimming in this abyss. And it's pretty like you're in this space of uncertainty. You want to grab at all the tangible aspects and make something out of it, and you don't have all the answers yet. So in the back of your head, you know that you want to make something great as a designer. You're working with a project that you don't have all the definitions for, and you want to make it awesome. So what does this mean? For those that can relate, those definitely the entrepreneurs, inventors in this room, you know that being in the spot can be a very lonely place. It's especially interesting when you're surrounded by non-designers, and they're all looking at you to come up with the solution because you're the creative. For your coworkers that haven't been on a project like this before, they make the project look like this, and they may think it looks like this, where it has a beginning and an end. In reality, the experience is a lot like this. For those that are confused, this is Tough Mudder. This race is full of obstacles and scary hazards and barbed wire and contraptions that will like electrocute you. It's pretty crazy, and people pay for it. It's messy, and it's ugly, and you're not sure you're going to finish. So what's interesting is that it's less about the individual, and it's more about the team effort. Everyone has to help everyone to finish. I can say for a fact that I've been on 3 projects that have definitely felt like this, and I'm going to walk you through 2 of them today. Several years ago, when I was working in New York City, I was working with an agency called Razorfish. You might have heard of it. And this is a project that was really based on business innovation. So a small team of us were tasked with creating a really interesting dashboard for the United Nations. This project was focused specifically on economic development in Africa. For 12 years, representatives from the UN went door to door to small businesses throughout the continent and interviewed the owners. They would ask questions like, was the tax rate reasonable? Did you have to use a bribe to get business done? Were you able to find educated workers? Did you have reliable access to electricity and water? Some pretty basic things to do business. So hundreds and hundreds of questions. Again, 12 years. They had this massive database, this huge spreadsheet. And all the answers were collected verbally and then compiled into this database, mostly a huge Excel spreadsheet. And this was a lot of work. I mean, 12 years is a lot of work. So why did they do this? They had a vision. And they thought if they can collect this data, they can reveal to foreign investors which countries were doing fair business and which countries were actually very corrupt. This was a very important time. Many large companies were looking at Africa as the next big emerging market. The cost of business in India and China, it was already rising, so Africa was seen as the next step for companies seeking alternative low-cost solutions. This dashboard that we created, this was a prototype. This was just a rough design. It really represented the parsing of the data and allowed for quick custom filtering, displayed visualization, and revealed the countries that were doing fair business and the countries that were doing that had corrupt practices in a real and tangible way. They could actually see it. So 3 months later, to my surprise, I'm now in Ethiopia, and I have to present this. Never been to the continent of Africa, definitely never been to Ethiopia. Very cool place, very vibrant, full of color and life. And I found myself presenting these designs to diplomats and ministers and African leaders seated in a very traditional UN setup. If you've ever seen pictures of it or on TV, it feels very official. Each person sits at their desks. They have their placard. They have their translator with a microphone. They had titles like Kenyan Minister of Mines, which I did not know existed. All of these diplomats were there to listen to us and to see our solution. To be honest, I was absolutely terrified. There was not a single designer in that room, and they were all definitely official looking. But what helped us more than anything was believing that the actual solution that we've created solved the problem. But what was also scary was that the solution was incredibly polarizing. So we gave this presentation, and we get 2 types of feedback. Naturally, those representatives from business-friendly countries were psyched. We're now finally rewarding them for doing good business. But those other countries, those countries that maybe had not so favorable scores, they were pretty pissed off at us. And that was a difficult situation to be in when you're trying to present that. So the takeaway from that is that when you're working on something that can fundamentally change how we think of a problem, it's very likely that you're going to make a lot of friends, but you can also make some enemies, and you'll have some naysayers. I think Airbnb and Uber probably experienced some of this. They kind of know what we're talking about. And self-driving car, we deal with some of this as well. The design may not have been revolutionary. Data dashboards are not special. But the use of that design had a huge impact. In this case, we were potentially affecting the business landscape of an entire continent, which is a huge thing. Now let's talk about the self-driving car. This is the next project that I'd say I was in kind of a tough mudder situation. On this project, I'm reminded every single day that we're solving a computer science problem. Now, mind you, when I came onto the project, I have no automotive background whatsoever. I'm a user experience designer. I try to actually get to the heart of what people really want. So as a designer, I'm reminded why we're doing this in the first place. I'm motivated by how the project can actually change lives and communities and landscapes in a real way. I'm motivated by the idea that we are all bad drivers, if we want to admit it or not. We text. We read emails. I've seen people put makeup on while driving. I saw a guy eating a bowl of soup while driving. This is actually truly dangerous, life-threatening behavior that we are conducting, and we just do it because it's always that chance that it's not me. I'm not the one that's going to cause the problem. So diving a bit deeper into the project, we can talk about the lasers and the radars and the map tiles and the latency. But what my team, the UX team, is really doing is creating an experience that does not yet exist. What's really interesting is that we've actually been talking about self-driving cars since the 50s. This illustration was created in the 50s, so it's not really a new concept. But what is happening now is that we're now creating the first experience for it. It's not just blue sky reality. It's now an actual experience. So we have a lot of questions. First off, where do we start? If there's no analogous offering out there, how do you start creating experience? And then the next big question is, what is the new driving? If you're not driving, what is driving then? We're going to show you a video. And this was produced by the self-driving car team to show you what the experience of the prototype feels like and how people reacted to it.
Today, we have something extra special for you guys, and you guys will be some of the first people outside of our team and outside of Google to ever ride in it.
Oh, there it is. Oh, isn't that cute?
Go ahead and buckle up.
Okay, Annie, here we go. All right, Connie, let's go. There's no steering wheel in the way.
It was a big decision for us to go and start building our purpose-built vehicles for this. And really, they're prototype vehicles. They were a chance for us to explore what does it really mean to have a self-driving vehicle. But in the small amount of time we've been working on it, we have functional prototypes, and that's exciting.
It's really cool. It was like really kind of a space age experience.
Oh, okay. Hooray. We're like queens. Yeah.
You said, relax. You don't need to do nothing. It knows when it needs to stop. It knows when it needs to go.
It actually rides better than my own car.
Yes, sure.
What she really liked was that it slowed down before it went around a curve and then accelerated
In
the curve. She's always trying to get me to do it that way.
That's the way I learned in a high school driver's ed.
So if I had a self-driving car, I could spend more time hanging out with my kids or helping them with their homework, even just tending to them, finding out how their day was and not having to wait till you get home and have dinner and all that. So it'll be good.
human feeling of it is very well engineered, and it is very smooth. There's nothing that makes you feel the least bit threatened. It's impressive. I'm totally in love with this whole concept.
Our lives are made up of lots and lots of little things, and a lot of those little things for most people have to do with getting from place to place. And in order to connect and do things, be with people, go places that they need to go and do things. And so there's a big part of my life that's missing, and there's a big part of my life that a self-driving vehicle would bring back to me.
This is a first step for us, and it's really exciting to see the progress we've made. The opportunity for people to just move around and not worry about it, it's going to be incredibly empowering and incredibly powerful for people.
I love this.
Great. So you kind of get to see a little bit of what it feels like. A lot of people, when they first think about self-driving, they're worried about giving up control, and they're thinking that it's going to be really scary, but it ends up actually being pretty boring after 30 seconds. You're just kind of sitting back and you let it go. So you've all seen our Lexus vehicles driving around, and we've learned a lot from those vehicles, and we're still learning from them. They're still driving around, and we're still improving our software. At some point, Chris Armstrong, who you saw in that video, decided it was time to really create our own vehicle that's entirely focused on self-driving. The industrial design team did an amazing job creating a car that's truly optimized for the sensors and the camera. That's why, and cameras, that's why we did this. So it may look cute and friendly, but it's also designed with purpose. Every choice there had a purpose. You saw in the video that there's no steering wheel, there are no pedals, there's no control. And that changes the entire experience in a vehicle. So what you're seeing here, now getting into the software, this is the engineering interface that we have that displays what the vehicle's seeing. And it's definitely an engineering interface. When you're in the prototype vehicle and you're looking at this at the same time, it's pretty fascinating. And this display is changing real time. And in this particular design, you are the red car, so that's the actual vehicle. You have other cars around you. Those are the purple boxes. And this is a pretty interesting situation because a group of pedestrians are crossing the crosswalk, and you're trying to turn right. So you see the trajectory of a green line to the right, and the yellow boxes, they're pedestrians. So we're really tracking everything that we see, all the different objects. We can categorize what kind of object it is. Is it a car? Is it a bike? Is it a pedestrian? And we can predict a little bit of what they're going to do. So we kind of know where pedestrians walk. We kind of know where cars go. But we also are constantly collecting more data in case something happens and we need to make an emergency maneuver. We believe that this interface is pretty important as far as user experience goes. And it helps the user learn to be comfortable with giving up control. As we work on a more consumer-facing version of this, we're asking ourselves a lot of questions. So how much do we show? This is showing everything that we know. It's pretty detailed, which may not be necessary. Maybe people don't need to see all of this. So do we show everything or we don't? Should we do an edited down version? Should it be super realistic or should it be super abstracted? That's another thing that we're trying to figure out as a design problem. And then what about camera angles? We can actually do almost any camera angle in this display. So here we're kind of bird's eye from the back. But we could do true bird's eye, we can pan right, we can pan left, we could do first person, like as if you're just looking out through the window, as if you're a driver. So we have a lot of variables here and a lot of things that we have to test over and over and over again. So lots of questions, absolutely no precedence for this. We're trying our best guesses. This is our process. We try our best guesses. We prototype every day. We're prototyping, and we're refining over and over again. Frankly, it's a really long process with lots of uncertainty, and as we chip away at it, we get closer and closer to something that we believe in. So the software engineers and the digital designers on this project, opposed to the industrial designers, we have a unique challenge. So for one, the prototype is almost entirely controlled through a phone app. It's literally the keys to your car. So there are not a lot of phone apps out there that have that level of mission-critical responsibility. The only experience I can think of that comes close to this is when you use an electronic boarding pass when you go to the airport. if your phone dies, you're not getting on that plane. But you do have another option. You can hassle the gate agent to print you another one. You can wait in that line. You're usually pretty busy. So it's kind of a hassle, but it's not a huge deal. So it's not quite an analogy, but it's close. We're also working hard at creating trust. I think a lot of new technologies have this challenge, but seeing that this is a moving vehicle, it's even more important to let the user know what the car knows. So that was a self-driving car. If you have questions, definitely I can answer some of them. A lot of the things related to the program, I can't really answer those questions, especially our detailed process. People always try to ask me. I can't answer those. But after this, please, if you have questions about what I've said today, afterwards, we're going to have a little Q&A session. So what I wanted to sort of bring together is my thoughts about emotions and when you're working on these projects. So for those that live and breathe 10x concepts, meaning ideas that improve problems by 10 times, I truly believe that your emotions can be your North Star. So anxiety, for example, it's not always a bad thing. Medically, it increases your blood flow, it releases hormones like adrenaline, it allows your mind to work on overdrive. For those procrastinators in the room, I am one of them, your work can feel better when you wait to the last minute. Sometimes that pressure to produce just makes better work. But for a lot of people, anxiety is felt because you don't have a plan. So I think it's important to note that you can't plan innovation. You can have these big ideas, and you have an idea where it's going to, but there really is no concrete roadmap for innovation. I once heard the creator of Radiolab, which is by far my favorite radio show. I absolutely love that show. He's won great awards for basically changing the format of radio. He said, I don't think change can be planned. I think it's only something that can be recognized after the fact. And I absolutely agree with this. In the 2 projects that I shared with you today, I think it's absolutely, we're obviously still working on the self-driving car, but we're definitely feeling this. So you can have a plan, especially for the next couple of weeks, but expect that it will change a lot, because there's a lot you just don't know. The real challenge is to be OK with that, and to recognize that your anxiety is usually a sign that you're either going to figure something out, you're about to get there, or the plan is about to change. It's one of the two. So for those moments that you experience fear with your work, know that fear is usually a sign that you're working on something brand new. And that's a pretty lucky place to be as a designer. This is a rare, rare occasion, so be grateful. But you may be a new designer learning your craft. That is also a scary place. And you're trying things for the first time. Or you may be working on something like the self-driving car. It kind of feels the same. Either way, you're diving into the unknown, and you will learn from it. If you're feeling comfortable, chances are you either found a bit of clarity and maybe a few answers, or maybe you've relied on something safe and maybe already done. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but please make sure that you're doing it because it's a better experience, not because it's easier. And this is my last major point here. If you are experiencing a moment of joy, those moments where you're like, I freaking did that, and we've all kind of had either little moments of that or big ones where there was a launch or you just showed up for a meeting and you were really actually proud of that design, take the time to celebrate. More often, I see so many designers run out of drive and creativity because they're pushing and they're fighting to get to those moments that reveal answers. And they start to burn out. And I really think small celebrations throughout your process will save you from burning out, especially when you're working on a very long-term innovative project like the self-driving car. So feel love for design. That will keep you going. Be grateful that you have the power and privilege to make something meaningful. And that's it for me. Any questions? I'd love to answer any questions I can. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diego, and I'm a designer and researcher. And I was wondering if you could tell us, and I don't know if you can, but how do you quickly validate some of the assumptions that you're working on.
Yep.
It seems like there's a pretty significant prototype you're playing with the car and the interface working together.
Yeah. So I'd say that our project is divided into two components. So there's industrial design. And luckily with building a car, there's some precedence to that. And there's some people actually here that know about that process way more than I do, because I didn't come from automotive. So they're kind of roughly following this process. But they, like I was kind of explaining, they course correct a lot. And they are all willing to kind of deal with change and deal with limitations that they're faced with. So it's almost more of an attitude than a process. They have a process, but they also have the attitude to accept change. On the digital side, so we have like two major components that we're working on. It's the phone app, the control of the car, and we have this kind of crazy screen in the prototype. It's long and skinny, and it sits about 4 feet from the eye. That's the one that is more difficult for us. We can design a phone app pretty easily to control the car, but that UI and the engineering interface that I shared with you, it's pretty gnarly. So basically what we do is we just try everything out. Everything is a hypothesis, and we get into the prototype. If you don't experience it firsthand, if it's just at your computer, you're never going to get a real answer. So we really believe in taking it out in the field and experiencing it firsthand and getting a gut check with it. And then, obviously, the next step after that is testing with real users. So we've identified user groups that we want to really get their feedback from. We put it in front of them and get their insights, and we just keep going and going and going. This is not sort of a waterfall effect where my researchers are next to me every single day testing things.
I'm curious, you're a user experience designer, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to know more about the experience you're aiming for, because it seems so broad and everyone in the video is either not disabled, everyone's happy and they're having a great time. And I'm curious if there's are you striving for collaboration and communication between passengers?
Yeah.
I just am a little more curious about the specifics of that goal.
Yeah, so I agree. Everyone in that video did look very happy, unnaturally so, but they were really happy. It was a good day for us. The experience, I'd say we have different feelings about it depending on when you're thinking about the project and how far along it is. So for our first when we release it to the world, which will happen one day, we're just trying to get trust. We just want people to feel safe and really trust it. And we will not launch anything that isn't absolutely safe. We have very, very high bars for all of our safety metrics. So safety, trust, number one. Friendly, no scary robots. That's really important to us as a user experience team. Further out, though, the feeling that we have is that we can actually change some really interesting aspects about society. Think about it. You get your driver's license as a rite of passage when you're 16-ish. What if that doesn't exist anymore? That's kind of crazy. There's this fly over here. That's kind of crazy. So what is the new rite of passage for driving? There are lots of things culturally in our DNA about driving, and especially in California, we care so much about driving. How is this project going to change that? And those are the things that we're thinking about a lot.
Hi.
Hey.
Have you done any explorations of more non-traditional spaces within the car, thinking about it not just as a place for seats, but as a place for a desk, as a place for an exercise bike, as a place to accomplish other goals while you are being transported?
Absolutely. So kind of one of the questions I posed was, what is the new driving? If you're not driving, you're doing something else. So if you're doing something else, what is that, and how can the space enable that other activity? So could we enable working? Could we enable conversations? Maybe enable productivity or just relaxation. You just want to unplug and sit back and relax. These, as a user experience team, these are definitely the things that we're thinking about. And thinking about how the interior of the vehicle itself can be configured or changed, or we can design something to really cater towards one of those experiences.
Now that you're spending so much time in self-driving cars, would you say that it's made driving in your car or driving around more or less fun?
So I actually hate cars. I'm going to be totally honest. I'm a cyclist. I don't like cars. So it's funny that I'm on this project. But it's actually great because I believe in a different thing. I believe that there's a place for cars, especially the joyriding when you love vehicles and you love the machinery and the engineering. There are plenty of people on my team who are like that, and I respect all of their hobbies and their passion for it. But for me, I'd say that I'm already someone that was kind of on the other side. I also, in college, I was in a major accident, and I had like post-traumatic stress from it, so I couldn't actually get into a car for about a year. I had to walk, ride my bike. That's why I became a cyclist, because I was so terrified to get into a car. So I already, in my depths of my being, already really feel that this is a necessary thing. Okay, thank you guys.